your thoughts lead you in a particular direction. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not successful enough. I'll never be a good father. I'll never be a good wife. Nobody loves me. Nobody has ever loved me. When you don't feel seen, you feel invisible in life. When you don't feel heard, you're going to feel misunderstood. And when you don't feel like you are accepted or validated, you feel completely rejected and disconnected. You feel like you are unworthy or unloved. And what's missing is a deeper sense that you actually matter. Your presence, your hopes, your dreams, your capacity to love, your ability to heal, that's what makes you worthy of being seen and heard and appreciated. Guess what? I'm not even done yet. Hi, how are you? Good morning. It's your friend Mel Robbins. And today I'm super excited because I'm going to talk to you about the one trick that all confident people use to stay positive. Okay. So welcome in. We're going to be talking today about the one trick that all confident people use to stay positive. I am also going to be reading from the High Five Habit. Today we are starting on page 59 in chapter 4, and we are going to finish chapter 4 today. And again, we're going to cover the trick that all confident people use to stay positive. This is a trick that you can use if you start to have negative thoughts. It's a trick that you can use if you start to feel yourself getting worried. It's a trick that you can use when your mindset starts to go south. And so this is a simple trick backed by science that I'm going to teach you today as I read and freestyle from the High Five Habit about how you can interrupt negative thoughts and flip into a positive mindset. And why would you want to do that? Well, the reason why you want to do that is because your thoughts lead you in a particular direction. And if you start to allow your mind to dwell on negative outcomes, if you start to obsess that things are not going to work out, if you allow yourself to continue to think negative thoughts, you're not only priming your mind to default to negative, but you will literally, through your thoughts, trigger negative actions. You know, if you think about it, you've had experiences in your life, right, where you've really trashed yourself. You've hated on yourself. And when you continually think that you hate yourself, or you continually tell yourself that you're screwing up, you tend to do things that you hate, don't you? But when you're in a positive mindset, when you're in an optimistic mindset, when you interrupt those negative thoughts and you start to say, well, maybe it is going to work out, or, you know, I got to just keep on going. Your thoughts literally can trigger positive action too. And so that's what we're going to talk about today as we read the High Five Habit. Welcome to the live stream. Also, we are going to take your questions. So for those of you that want to read along, page 59, we're going to read 4 pages of the book today, finish chapter 4, and I'm also going to teach you the one trick all confident people use to stay positive. Here we go. So to understand the profound power of accepting and encouraging yourself, which is a way to have a positive mindset, to have a mindset that defaults on being encouraging. Let's look at some research on what psychologists call your core fundamental emotional needs. So let me ask everybody, do you know what your core emotional needs are? There are 3 of them. I want you to go in the comments. What do you think your 3 core emotional needs are as a human being? These are the core emotional needs that every human being needs in order to feel safe, in order to feel connected to themselves, in order to feel loved. What are those core needs, everybody? I'd like you to just write them in the comments, okay? Yep, one's safety, one's love. These are great. What else? What are your needs? Your core emotional needs. I see longing. I see love. These are excellent, excellent responses, everybody. Human connection, love, acceptance. Yep. Yep. Trust, honesty. What are your core? There they are. I see Felicia's nailed it. To be seen, to be heard, and to be, she says validated, but it can be validated, accepted, or celebrated for the unique individual that you are. So to be seen, to be heard, and to be celebrated and accepted for the unique individual that you are and the unique contribution that you have. When you feel seen, when you feel heard, and when you feel celebrated or accepted for the contribution that you make as an individual, unique individual, you feel safe, you feel like you belong, and at your core, you feel loved. When you don't feel seen, you feel invisible in life. When you don't feel heard, you're going to feel misunderstood. And when you don't feel like you are accepted or validated, you feel completely rejected and disconnected. You feel like you are unworthy or unloved. And so again, we're going to talk about your need to be seen, to be heard, and to be accepted and celebrated. You need this at work. You need this at home. You need this in your relationships, your friendships, your romantic relationships, your family. And, if you just reflect in your life, where do you feel seen, heard, and celebrated? Where in your life do you feel that way? Or is there a person in your life that makes you feel that way? Hopefully, you are saying that you make yourself feel seen, heard, and celebrated. But is there somebody else in your life that makes you feel that way? It could be a caregiver. It could be somebody that you're in a romantic relationship with. It could be a mentor. It could be a friend. It could be your pet, right? I think one of the reasons why we all love our cats and our dogs so much is because there's such unconditional love. You walk in the door, they come running right at you. And so you feel seen and you feel celebrated, right? And when they're right there with you, or, have you ever noticed how when you get really upset and you start crying, what do your animals do? Oh my God, they hear you and they come right on over. And those responses that are so innate when it comes to your pets, everybody, they're fulfilling your emotional needs. That's why you feel so safe and connected and loved by your pets, because you feel seen by them, you feel heard by them, and you feel celebrated and loved by them. And I do see people saying, I feel that way about my daughter, my mom, a mentor of mine. These core values, when they're missing from your life of being seen, heard, celebrated, and accepted, this is what leads you to feeling stuck and disconnected and unfulfilled. And the good news is, when you realize that these core fundamental needs truly dictate how you feel and experience your life, now you've got the access point to be able to change how you're experiencing your life by focusing on your core fundamental needs and making sure that they are met. All right. You need these 3 fundamental emotional needs in order to thrive. They talk about this in Psychology 101. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And here's the background. You have basic needs that are fundamental to your fulfillment, your happiness, and your survival. You need water, food, oxygen, shelter, and sleep, right? Because if you don't have water or food or oxygen or shelter, or you get enough sleep, guess what? You die. That's how fundamental these core needs are. You also know that you need friendship, or else you're going to feel lonely. And research shows that people die from loneliness too. It's a huge killer. You may also know that you have a fundamental need to grow, because if you're not growing and learning as a person, you start to feel stuck in your life. But what you may not know is that you do have these core fundamental emotional needs to be seen, to be heard, to be loved for the unique individual that you are. And when these emotional needs are not met, it's not only a form of neglect, but you will feel unloved, invisible, and unfulfilled. And see, I believe that's how we all got so critical of ourselves in the first place. And it's why we're twisting ourselves in knots ever since. that at some point in your childhood, those core fundamental needs stop being fulfilled. You started feeling invisible. You started feeling disconnected. You started feeling like you didn't belong. And as we talked about in yesterday's video, this is all covered in chapter 4 of the High Five Habit, that you then turned that feeling against yourself and you started to go, well, there must be something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me. No, there's nothing wrong with you. It was that your 3 fundamental emotional needs were not being fulfilled by the adults around you. That's all that was wrong. So you can change this, by the way, for yourself. Because what's missing, if you're not fulfilled in life, is a deeper connection to yourself. Because you've probably been so busy running from one thing to the next that you can't even grasp right now how big of a shift it's going to create when you start each morning by simply seeing, hearing, and honoring yourself. And one of the reasons why I love all the research around adding a simple high five in the mirror to your morning routine is that it fulfills your deepest emotional needs as a human being. This one action of just high-fiving yourself in the mirror, add it to your morning routine. How many of you have added a high five to your morning routine and you're stunned by how much it's changing the way that you see yourself, the way that you treat yourself? Because as you've learned, these 3 emotional needs were probably never met during your childhood, and you haven't been given the tools until right now to be thinking about this and to start fulfilling these emotional needs as an adult. And, you know, the reason why you feel invisible at work, or you feel outside of your friend group, or you feel disconnected in your relationships as an adult, not to mention the relationship you have with yourself, is because there's something missing. And what's missing is a deeper sense that you actually matter. What's missing is the sense that you are being seen and heard and appreciated. This is critical. It's so critical. If you were to wake up and you had a feeling of being connected to yourself and you felt seen in your life and you felt appreciated in your life and you felt heard in your life, that would absolutely change how you go through life. That's why this is such powerful stuff, as simple as it is. And I love seeing so many of you writing in the comments about how you are adding in the high five and how it's changing your life and how you're starting to take your emotional needs seriously and you're starting to make it a priority to fulfill them and how it's changing everything. Now look, don't bother arguing with me because I did the math. I think sometimes in life, you forget just how miraculous you are. You know, you get so beaten down by the day-to-day and you're so sort of beaten up by what you've survived in your past that you've lost sight of how extraordinary you are. And so I'm going to remind you of how extraordinary you are. And I brought some math to prove it. So I just want you to wrap your brain around this really cool fact. The odds of you being born are 1 in a million. We're just going to start there, okay? We're going to do some simple math and we're going to build. The odds of you being born are for sure 1 in a million because your mom carries over 1 million eggs in her body during her lifetime. Isn't that wild? You're 1 in a million. But guess what? That's not even close to the mathematical phenomenon that you are. 1 in a million doesn't even touch the surface of how extraordinarily unique and amazing you are. Because based on recent research, scientists have also figured out that the egg that formed you was really choosy, and that egg could determine which of your father's 250 million sperm cells it wanted to connect with. That's right. This was not a race with the sperm. The egg was very, very choosy. And if that egg that created you chose any other sperm, guess what? You wouldn't be watching this live stream. Your sibling would, because you never would have been born. So just wrap your mind around those odds. 1 in a million plus 1 in 250 million? What are the odds of that? Well, the experts crunched the numbers on that, and the odds of you being the result and being born and being here with me right now 1 in 400 trillion. 1 in 400 trillion. Now, guess what? I'm not even done yet. 1 in 400 trillion doesn't even scratch the surface in terms of what a miracle you are. Are you ready? A scientist from Harvard heard me cite that number, 1 in 400 trillion, in my TEDx talk. And he wrote a research paper to say, Mel Robbins, you are wrong. You are such a miracle. The odds of you being born is such a miracle. And the number is so insane. I don't even know how to say the number. Literally, no idea how to say the number. It's like 1 times 10,000 with that little sort of factor at the top with another million. Like, it's bananas. I can't even explain to you what a miracle that you are. And all of this math, it proves something really important. And that is that someone as unique and special as you deserves to be seen and heard. Feeling like you matter, that somebody cares about you, that you are worth celebrating, it is one of your most important and fundamental needs. And I'm here to tell you that because the math proves that you are a walking miracle, there will never be another you. There never has been another you. There will never be another you that will ever walk this earth. You are the one and only, which means you have something extraordinarily unique to give to the world. And feeling celebrated and feeling seen and feeling heard, it is so tied into your existence because of how unique you are. That's why you long to be recognized as an individual. That's why you long to be celebrated as an individual. This need, it's so important and foundational to you and the fact that your birth and existence is a miracle, that it's as important to your well-being to be seen and heard and appreciated as food and water. The difference between a good day and a bad day, you know what it comes down to typically, is just being acknowledged by somebody. And you know who's the best person to acknowledge and validate you? You are. And that brings me back to that moment every single morning when you come face to face with yourself in the mirror. High-fiving yourself is so much more than a physical act. It's foundational. It's a transfer of energy. It symbolizes an alliance and a belief in yourself and your ability. You aren't congratulating yourself. You're celebrating yourself as you are. And you just heard the math. Your existence is what makes you worthy of a high five. Your presence, your hopes, your dreams, your capacity to love, your ability to heal, to change, to grow, your heart, your soul. That's what makes you worthy of being seen and heard and appreciated. Not once in a while, but every single day. That's what you deserve. That's what you need. And the miracle of your existence is why you need it. See, when you are able to see yourself, when you are able to celebrate yourself, when you are able to treat yourself in a way that you have been wishing your parents would have, or wishing your friends or your spouse or your boss would, when you take control, this is what you communicate. It's incredible. You're basically, when you're able to hear yourself and see yourself and support yourself, and I believe that simply adding a high five in the mirror to yourself as part of your morning routine, every single day, you start the day by fulfilling those foundational needs that the miracle of your birth demands of you. Number one, you're communicating confidence. You're saying, I believe in you when you do that. Number two, you're celebrating yourself. You're basically like, you're amazing. You got this. You're validating yourself. You're saying, I see you. I'm not going to ignore you or pick you apart. You communicate optimism. I can do this. I can face this day. And I love adding a high five to your morning routine because it is an action. You're demonstrating belief in self. You're demonstrating acceptance of self. And you are sending yourself into the day to take action. Wouldn't it be incredible to feel all those feelings at once? I know it would. It would be mind-blowing. Literally, it could possibly blow up your subconscious because your brain, based on your life experience, is programmed the opposite. It's not been programmed to absorb all this yummy, gooey, amazing validation. But guess what? Your brain loves it. Absolutely loves it. See, I believe you were wired for love. I believe that you came into this world whole and complete and loving and seeing and accepting yourself and being deeply connected to yourself. And that's why you miss feeling that way. And it's also why this change of adding a high five to your morning routine is almost instantaneous. This is why the programming that we're activating in your mind, body, and spirit, when you start to acknowledge and accept yourself and treat yourself with kindness, and when you start to flip the way that you think and you start to cheer for yourself and believe in yourself, this is your default. You are going back to who you are when you practice the tools that I'm teaching you. It is your true nature to love yourself. It is your true nature to believe in yourself. It is your true nature to feel deeply connected to yourself and a sense of purpose. That's why you miss it. You can only miss what you know. And so I want you to come back home to who you are. That's what I want you to do. Now, okay, I get it. But Mel, how do I think different thoughts? And this is what I promise to teach you. The trick that all confident people use to stay positive. The trick that you can use to think different thoughts. Well, the first step to thinking different thoughts is you have to catch the old thought that takes you low, okay? And if you don't know what the thought is that takes you low, here's a hint. It's some version of I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not successful enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not lucky enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. There's something wrong with me. It's some version of that. And if you know what the thought is that always brings you down, could you please write it in the comments? Because you will inspire somebody else. You will make somebody else realize they're not alone, okay? What is the thought that always takes you down? Mine is some version of, it never works out for me. People are mad at me. I'm not a good person. Nothing I ever do is gonna matter. Like, it's just some horrible version of that, okay? So first step number one, what is the thought that always takes you down? I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not loved enough. I'll never be this. Like, I see this. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not now, never will be. I'm never going to grow up. I'm never going to get it right. I always screw things up. I'm not thin enough. I'm not smart enough. Other people do it better than me. I'm too big. Anyway, keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep writing this down because you're giving other people permission to take a look. I'll never make enough money. I'll never be a good father. I'll never be a good wife. Nobody loves me. Nobody has ever loved me. All of this horse shit that you tell yourself. This has become the default wiring. Step number one is identify what thought takes you down, okay? It's like dropping a guillotine on your power and on your future and on your possibility. It cuts you off from who you truly are and what you truly want and desire and deserve in your life. And whenever you think this thought, I'll never be loved, I'll never meet somebody's standards, I'll never make the money, you literally also stop yourself from taking the actions that change your life. So great job. You've already done step one. Identify the thought that takes you down. Because here's the cool thing. That's not how you came into this world. You didn't come into this world thinking, I'm not enough. I'm not lovable. I never do anything right. I'll never amount to anything. I never should have been born. You didn't come into the world thinking that. Somebody taught you to think that. And so if you can figure out what that negative thought is, right? Pick your poison. I'm not smart enough, good enough, tall enough, skinny enough, rich, whatever it is. I call it poison. You want to know why? I call it poison because thinking this negative thought is like drinking poison. It kills your spirit and your innate desire to be seen, to be heard, and to be celebrated. You are dropping the guillotine right on yourself when you think this poisonous thought, okay? Now, what is step 2? Step 2 is, yes, you have to identify it, but it's not enough to just identify it. Step 2 is we need to replace it, okay? We need to replace it. And so I'm going to teach you what you're going to do next. The next time you think that negative, I'm not enough thought, you're going to break the thought by saying, I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. And then number 3, we have got to replace the thought. So you're going to catch the thought, you're going to break the thought, and then we're going to replace the thought. That's what you need to do to get this poison out of your mind and start thinking thoughts that align with your fundamental needs. And what are your fundamental needs? It's what we've been talking about today. It's to be seen, it's to be heard, it's to be celebrated. And one of the things that I love about cultivating a high 5 attitude is the high 5 attitude is an attitude that aligns with believing in yourself, seeing yourself, and appreciating, celebrating, and encouraging yourself to continue to move forward. That's what you're doing. And so one of the things that you can do, I know this is going to sound crazy, is by adding a high 5 to your morning routine, it helps you rewire your mind in a very powerful way. And the reason why it will help you rewire your mind in a very powerful way is if your default right now is I'm not enough, when you add this to your morning routine, your brain sees you treating yourself in the exact opposite way of that negative poisonous thought. Because you don't high 5 somebody that you think isn't enough or that sucks or that you hate. You only high 5 people that you believe in, that you think are enough, and that you're rooting for. And so add a high 5 to your morning routine, because that is part of the positive forward programming of plowing new neural pathways in your mind. Again, let me repeat the trick all confident people use to stay positive. You got to catch that negative poisonous thought. You got to break it. I'm not thinking about that. Talk back to it. And then you must replace it. You have to learn how to replace it and program a positive mind, because your brain's circuitry is designed to just repeat the patterns that are there. So simply identifying and trying to break the pattern won't work. We got to replace it and program new neural pathways in. This is why all of you who are high-fiving yourself, whether you're taking the High 5 Challenge, go to high5challenge.com. It's a free 5-day program that I lead you through. You can do it with 150,000 other people from 90 different countries, or whether you've read the book or watched our videos or listened to these live streams. For those of you that are adding the high 5 to your morning routine, what are you noticing about the way it's changing your mind? What are you noticing about how those negative poisonous thoughts are starting to be replaced by more positive programming? That's what this book is about, everybody. Write it in the comments. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to some questions. That is the end of chapter 4. Oh, wait, I've got one more paragraph and then I'll do it to questions. The reason why you want to catch the thought, break the thought, replace the thought is because we want to teach you how to let validation, confidence, celebration, optimism, and action, a high 5 attitude. We want to teach you how to make that the new default. That whenever you feel yourself going mentally low because of poisonous thoughts, that the thought alone, those poisonous thoughts, they paralyze your ability to move forward. So whenever you think that thought, I want you to learn how to catch it. Because whenever you have that poisonous thought, you don't want to high 5 anybody, right? You don't want to high 5 yourself. You don't want to do anything. You don't feel like doing anything. It kills your inspiration and motivation. So we want to catch it. We want to break that thought and we want to replace it. And chapter 5, right here, Am I Broken? Page 63 is where we're going to pick up this party tomorrow. We're going to read this book. I'm going to try to get through it by the end of the year. I got to talk faster, don't I, and stop freestyling. But that's my favorite part. Okay, I got 2 quick questions. We'll see if we have time for any more. But so Julie writes, Mel, what do I do if my family still doesn't understand me at the age of 55? They can make me feel like I'm wrong. They make me feel like I'm wrong and I can't fix it. So I'm going to attack this question. What do I do if my family doesn't understand me? They make me feel like I'm wrong and I can't seem to fix the dynamic. First of all, we got to talk about 2 things. One is your family's behavior and what you can do to potentially influence their behavior toward you. And the second thing is your processing and reaction to their behavior. So the first thing I want you to understand is that you can't change somebody else. If your family does not understand you, and if they say things or operate in a way that makes you feel wrong, you will probably never change that dynamic. And so one of the things that you need to do is you need to accept that this is just how it is. And you need to stop wishing that things could be different. And you need to focus your energy on changing your thought process and your actions in terms of how you respond to their behavior. Because there is the fact that your family does whatever your family does. They make you wrong, they criticize you, they don't pay attention to you, they spoil the other people. Whatever it is that the actions are, it is what it is. If you're in your 50s and this is how it's always been, this is probably how it's always going to be. And the faster that you accept that and you stop going to the source that hurt you to try to find your healing, the faster you will gain control. That's number 1. Number 2, let's reframe misunderstand. Because I think that when people misunderstand you or criticize you, like you could flip this and you could see it as a source of power. You know, there's this great quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson: to be great is to be misunderstood. Maybe you're different from your family. Maybe you're the one that's going to break some generational cycles. Maybe you are living out your truth and you're living your life on your terms. And that's very confronting to your family because they don't understand it. They don't need to understand what you're doing. You need to understand what you're doing. And that's why you also need to practice habits of self-validation and self-love and self-support. You got to stop looking outside of yourself for the validation, love, and support that you need. And you need to give it to yourself. Because when you can learn how to look yourself in the mirror, and even if your family doesn't understand you or they make you wrong or they say stupid shit that makes you, used to make you feel bad, if you can look in the mirror and say, well, I like who I am, I like my life, it might sting a little if your parents don't approve of what you're doing or your siblings question what you're doing or they don't support you the way you deserve to be supported. But their criticism won't change how you feel about you. So that's rule number 1. Double down on habits of self-acceptance, on self-celebration, and stop looking for the validation, love, and support that you need in people who cannot give it to you. That's number 1. Number 2, I just said that you cannot change somebody else, but you can influence them by focusing on yourself and by coming from a different place. If you're in this sort of deadlock dynamic with your family and you're going to them and you feel misunderstood, I guarantee you on the other side, if you took the time, and I'm not suggesting you want to, but if you do want to improve your relationship, there's a simple thing about relationships. The one thing that will change any relationship dynamic, whether it's family or friends or romantic, committed partnership, the one thing that changes any relationship, is you going out of your way to make sure somebody else's fundamental needs are met? Are you showing up in a way that your family feels seen and heard and appreciated? Are you reaching out? Are you acknowledging what they're doing? Are you complimenting them on the things that they're doing? You know, for many, many years, my mom and I were at a complete deadlock. We loved each other to death, but we didn't understand each other. And because we didn't understand each other, because in many ways we're super similar and in other ways we're very different, because we didn't understand each other, there was a lot of pent up hurt because we wanted to feel connected. We wanted to feel supported by one another. But because we live our lives so differently, you know, she's in the Midwest, in the house that I grew up in a really small town. I went east for college. I never came home. We both hate the fact that we don't live near each other. And instead of somehow coming together and figuring out new ways to be more deeply connected rather than living next door to each other, we stopped understanding each other. And that led to a lot of this. And when you stop understanding each other, then you cross your arms and go, oh, well, I'm over here and why are you over there? And, you know, if, you know, come on over the line and then I'll feel safe with you again. And so we were in a standoff for a long time, a lot of misunderstanding, kind of hurt feelings, bristly phone calls. When I'd get together, you know, either going to see my folks or then coming here, it'd be tense because there was so much unresolved stuff because we didn't understand each other. I wanted her to be loving. She wanted me to be loving. I wanted her to make more of an effort. She wanted me to make more of an effort. Does this sound familiar, everybody? Well, if you want to stop the tug of war that comes from misunderstanding, drop the rope and understand that everybody on the planet just wants to be seen, to be heard, and to be celebrated. And one of the things that has profoundly changed my relationship with my mom, it's started to heal it, is first of all, I've done a tremendous amount of work on myself for my own childhood trauma, my own nervous system. Healing yourself is the greatest way to heal any other relationship because every relationship starts with you. But the second thing that I did is 3 days a week, I have an alarm that goes off in my phone at the same time that says, call mom. And I pick up the phone and I call my mom. And the only intention behind that call is to just check in and ask her a bunch of questions about what's going on and to show up in a way, no strings attached, that makes my mom know that I see her, I hear her, and I appreciate and celebrate her. And I notice that the more frequently we talk and check in, the way more connected we are, the way more we understand one another. And it's been and was one way for a long time because I did it with no strings attached. I did it not to fix my mom. I did it to empower a dynamic where I was showing up differently. And by me showing up differently, it has created a way for her to show up differently because she now feels emotionally safe with me. She now feels like I understand her again. She now, and says this, I feel like you're back. I feel like the daughter that left for college and never came home has actually come home. And that has happened because I've worked on myself, because I have stopped doing what you're doing, which is crossing your arms and going, nobody understands me, and why don't they support me, and why don't they show up differently? And I've instead said, this matters to me. So I'm going to give my folks what I have been wishing I'd get from them. And that shifts everything because behind any person that doesn't understand you or any person that you have some kind of toxic dynamic, I promise you, there is either their own childhood trauma and untreated stuff that they don't have any idea that is impacting their current relationships, or more likely, or on top of, there's hurt feelings. Somebody feels disrespected. Somebody feels invisible. somebody feels disconnected, and human beings, instead of leaning toward each other, tend to cross their arms and lean back. It's a protection mechanism. So that's a whole lot that I just threw at you, but I think I can sum it up. If you feel misunderstood by your family, is number one, stop going to them for understanding and start giving it to yourself. Double down on the habits in the High Five Habit book, habits of self-acceptance, habits of seeing yourself, habits of understanding yourself. The next thing that you can do is work on your own healing. That's the best way to heal any other relationship, is heal yourself first, and get your nervous system regulated, get your childhood trauma treated, get yourself in order so that you can look yourself in the eye and be proud of and loving of yourself. And then the final piece of advice is, if you truly want to try to shift the dynamic, change how you're showing up and focus on acting in a way that the people in your life that you want to connect with feel seen, heard, and appreciated by you. And frequency of phone calls, remembering important dates, asking questions and caring, and doing it with no strings attached is the fastest way to turn a relationship around. And I think it's really important that you, if you take that on, you do it because you want to be the kind of person that shows up that way. But you drop the expectation that somebody else will actually change. You're changing how you show up because that's what aligns with your values. Got it? Good. All right. The other question we got is from Spencer. This is really good, and this is from yesterday's reading. Mel, how do you teach your kids that love is unconditional and not transactional? What Spencer's referring to is super important. Every human being gets the message from their parents that in order to be liked or loved, you must comply with rules. You got to wear your hair a certain way. You got to have a certain major. You got to play a certain sport. And parents do this to their kids because it's the easiest way to get them to comply. You know, if you're a stressed out parent and you need your kids to do stuff, it's hard to slow down and be present. And so instead we're like, cut your hair, play the sports. And so you start to get the message as a kid that if I do what you say, then you'll love me. That love is transactional. And so Spencer, it's a great question. How do we teach our kids that love is unconditional? It's not transactional. First, you need to understand as a parent that when you hold out liking your kid or loving your kid as the punishment or the reward for them to do something, you're teaching them that love is transactional. You are holding out your emotional support and your approval and acceptance in order to get them to comply. So stop fucking doing it. That's number one. How do you stop doing it as a parent? Well, I'm going to give you 4 things that you can do to model that you love and support your child unconditionally while still parenting. Because as a parent, you can't just take the guardrails off and let your kids run wild. That would be completely reckless and irresponsible. What you have to learn how to do is to be tough, to have your kids understand that there are rules that they need to follow, but don't use your love or your acceptance as the, weight for complying or the penalty for complying. Okay. The reward for complying or the penalty for complying. So here's 4 things that you can do. And I'm going to give you one caveat beforehand. This applies for the generic parenting stuff. Whenever you're dealing with a situation that is dangerous, deadly, or destructive, you step your ass in and you be the parent, period. Because you need to protect your children. And you step in situations that are dangerous, destructive, or deadly. Because protecting them in those situations and being the parent and taking control is what communicates love and support in those situations. But in all the other just million of scenarios that you're going to find yourself in, these are the 4 rules that allow you to parent without penalizing your kids. Well, let me say this a different way. These are the 4 things that you need to do in order to parent in a way that allows a kid to be seen, heard, and accepted, and also allows them to learn and grow, which is what you want them to do. Ultimately, your kids are supposed to leave. They're supposed to grow up. They're supposed to go on and build a life of their own. That's the whole point, to raise them so they can leave and be successful on their own. So the 4 things I'm going to teach you allow you to satisfy your kids' 3 emotional needs of being seen, heard, and loved, and still parent them. Number 1, listen, listen, listen. Don't do as much talking. Start listening. There is one sentence that fundamentally changed the way that I parent, and it communicates that I love you unconditionally. And that is, whenever my kids come to me with a problem, I always say, do you want me to listen, or would you like advice? When you start giving advice and jumping in too fast, what happens is your kids don't feel validated or heard by you. When I ask my kids, do you want me to listen or just give advice? 90% of the time they say, I just want you to listen. And that's a wonderful thing because they are gaining the self-awareness that they need somebody to listen to them. And you just saying, do you want me to listen or do you want me to give you advice? It allows you to let them just unload on you. And oftentimes, if you jump in and give advice too quickly, what happens is they start to feel like you don't hear them, and they start to feel like they need to follow your advice, or you're not going to like, love, or approve of them. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, when they come with you with a problem, even if they say, I'd love your advice, don't jump in and give them advice. Ask questions. Because what you want to do is you want to teach your kids how to think critically through situations and how to think through what the consequences of what they might do are going to be. Because that's how you learn to do it as an independent adult, right? Like ultimately, you're not going to make all the decisions for them. So you want to teach them how to think through. Well, what do you think you should do? What do you think your friend would react? Or how do you think your friend would react if you did that thing? What are 3 things, 3 different options? You're right. You could text, you could email, you could make a phone call. Which do you think would be more effective? So don't even jump in with the advice. Ask a lot of questions. That teaches your child how to think through confronting situations. It makes them feel seen. It makes them feel supported, and it makes them feel loved by you. And then when they pick ultimately which thing they're going to do, just say, I think that's a great idea, and know that I'm here to support you. If your kids say, well, what do you think I should do? You should say, well, here's what I think I would do in that situation, but I'm not in that situation. So what do you think you should do? Always put it back on them. The third thing is, this is the golden rule. No matter what they say to you, this is really hard for me, by the way. Affirm what they're feeling. Affirm what they're feeling. Their roommate takes their favorite t-shirt. Don't go, well, you got 15 others. What's the big deal? That makes your kid feel invisible. It makes them feel misunderstood. Say, well, that's terrible. I'm sorry that happened to you. If they're talking about how they're scared to go to school or scared to their first day of work, or they're worried about going to this thing tonight, or they don't think they look good, or whatever, just whatever it is that they're feeling, affirm what they're feeling. Super important, because if you don't affirm what they're feeling, what you're teaching them is, oh, well, my mom or dad doesn't understand, so I'm not even going to tell them. And so they start to learn that you don't like them, you don't understand them, so they're just not going to share that stuff with you. They feel like they're not seen. You're training them not to talk about how they're feeling because you're invalidating what they're feeling. Whew. And finally, this is a big one too. Always compliment attributes and qualities, values, and character, not how your kid looks, not the fact that they're an amazing baseball player. Always affirm the characteristics, the values-driven qualities. You're loyal, you're hardworking. I see you trying your best. That is what's going to build up this sense of being affirmed as a unique individual, is you hammering the qualities, characteristics, and values that you see them expressing. If you are somebody who focuses on appearance or performance, you're training your kid that being loved and appreciated is about how you look and about what you do. When you affirm qualities or value-driven behaviors, you are affirming that you like, love, and appreciate your child for who they are. Big difference. All right. I hope that helps. So if you want to get a copy of the High Five Habit, get them. This is an incredible holiday present, by the way. People don't need more stuff. They need tools to change their life. So get a copy for everybody on your list. The High Five Journal comes out next week. You can buy them now. And this is I love this journal. Not only is it beautiful, it's inspiring, it's backed by science, it uses science, it works with the High Five Habit book, and it will train you through daily prompts to rewire the default programming in your mind. It trains you on getting your mind, body, and spirit aligned with what you want and how to manifest properly. This puppy is so cool. Again, it's so beautiful. For those of you who cannot get a copy of the High Five Journal, wherever you are in the world, no problem. I got you. I got you if you can't afford it too. You can just go to highfivejournal.com and download a free template and try it out. And that way you have access to it. Thank you for supporting the High Five Habit. Thank you for buying this for your friends. Literally the best gift in the world. There's our dog YOLO that you could get people you love, is give them the tools to learn how to love themselves. Give them the tools to take control of their life. That's the best thing that you could do. All right. In case nobody else tells you, let me tell you, I love you. I believe in you. It's your turn to go believe in yourself too. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.